person came to me through TikTok asking for guidance about a specific issue this person had been facing, and it's that in the process of internet debating, comment sections, and the like, it seemed like they were making traction, that they were winning the debate, which has its own set of definitions I won't get into just yet. But in that process, that they would get blocked before they could reach a, shall we say, a satisfying conclusion to that conversation, and how to navigate that to get a little bit more satisfying conclusions. And so, obviously, I have been banned my share, maybe a little less than my share of times, and I personally have a commitment. I don't know if that might be too strong of a word, but I made kind of a resolution in my own mind that I do not want to have to ban anybody across any platform, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. And so far I've been able to hold true to that, of that I have not had to ban, block anyone so far. And hopefully that stays true. I mean, the whole, whatever you want to say, knock on wood. But at what point does it seem like getting blocked is inevitable, I guess, is the question. And I think where we really need to begin is that you need to do a little bit of a series of inventory questions, vetting questions for where you are as an individual. All right, so the first is, who is it that I am speaking to? The second is, what is it that I am saying? And then number 3 is, how is it that I am saying what I am saying? When you get through all 3 of those, you will probably find the source of why you've been banned, blocked, whatever. So let's start with the first one. This is often overlooked because we often don't see another person we're debating with as actually another person. We view them as a representative of a group. We should not do that. Because when you do that, when you see them as a representative of a group, what happens is you begin to shortcut their responses. You assume things about what they are saying that maybe they have not necessarily said. So by asking the question of who am I speaking to, you're asking the question of what is this person as an individual saying to me. They might not be doing this. They might be treating me as a representative of a group or whatever. Doesn't matter. You can only control you. So what are they saying? If they have not overtly said something, maybe you shouldn't take that thing for granted. If it is a necessary implication underneath what they're saying, maybe you can address it, but you should, as much as possible, speak directly to what they have directly said. Not anything more underneath unless it is absolutely necessary, or it appears to be something of a red herring, right? Don't chase red herrings. Don't pursue fallacies except for the purpose of exposing them, right? So who is this person? And on the subject of specifically not seeing them as a representative of a group, they might use handles in the conversation of saying that they are an atheist, or a former atheist, or a former Christian, or LGBT, or whatever the thing is. They may use labels for themselves. But you should not assume that you know what those labels mean. You should not take for granted that the two of you have a shared understanding of what those mean. If anything, what you need to do is ask for greater clarification on all of them, if possible. Obviously, you don't want to get down into the weeds trying to get someone's whole backstory 160 characters at a time. That, in many ways, would be a waste of time. But you should, as much as possible, treat this individual as just that, an individual, not a member, a soldier of a group. Because if you do, what's going to end up happening is, like I said, shortcutting, hostile, caricaturing, things of that nature. No, you want to have it one-on-one as much as possible. And also, do not dogpile. If two people, like I see this in my comment section, I will let two people go back and forth. I won't interject a whole lot unless I see something really egregious. But if a person is making solid points against someone that you're debating against, don't dogpile. Like, what that's going to do is it's going to close them off. It's going to make them, what it does is it embarrasses them, which provokes the self-preservation, the save face tactics, defenses. It makes them defensive. And that is going to make it impossible, generally, to get through. That's a very short path towards getting blocked, getting banned, getting reported, right? So don't dogpile. If someone's making good points, great. Maybe like a comment or something, that's fine, but you want to avoid trying to embarrass or humiliate and so forth, because that is clearly the wrong way to go. Remember, not only seeing them as an individual, but also seeing them as a human being. That this is a person. People do have emotions. Those emotions can cloud judgment. You do want to keep things rational as much as possible, but in order to keep things rational, you also need to monitor your rhetoric so that it is as easy as possible to accept it. And that goes to the next point of what the second question is, what am I saying? This goes to treating yourself as an individual, not as a representative of a group. You will notice I tend to try to avoid citing controversial characters or spokespersons in my conversations. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I usually will stay away from a Jordan Peterson or a, I don't know, whoever. A Joe Rogan maybe. I usually try to stay away from citing either conversations those people have had or direct statements those people have made, because I know it's more like a landmine than it is an asset. If I am speaking to someone who is a fill-in-the-blank opponent, let's see, if thinking about who I am, conservative-leaning moderate, Christian, confession Christian, or a covenantal Christian, former ministry leader, sort of like all the different things that I am, traditional husband, father, working class, all these kind of things. Person that's going to take an opposite position from me on most things is going to be various things. And so I'm going to avoid using people they are already predisposed to taking, unless it's someone like Jesus, St. Paul, St. Peter. Like, there's certain people that I don't have any shame or I don't have any conscience about citing them. Scripture itself, historical figures like Martin Luther or Thomas Aquinas maybe. Like, there's certain people I will use because I don't have any shame. But modern people that are very hot-buttony, that say things intentionally that are provocative, I'll usually stay away from those things because they just aren't productive, is what I'm saying. That might sound kind of confusing, but I'll usually stay away from them if I can. If I can, and it's usually not that hard to avoid. What am I saying in that? Am I using as clear of language as possible. Going from, this is basically the opposite perspective of the first point, again, that when you want to only respond to what another person has directly said, you also want to make it as easy as possible for a person to only respond to what you have said, not to maybe some clandestine implications that are underneath. Occasionally I might bury a lead, that I will leave a flank open on purpose. I know they'll go that direction, and that way I can kind of steer a conversation towards what I want to discuss more. But keeping in mind, you want to make sure that you're avoiding, with what you say, you want to avoid caricatures, you want to avoid hostile stereotypes of your opposition, you want to avoid any kind of insults whenever possible, you want to avoid anything that can even be interpreted as an insult, any of that. Like, you want to stay away from those things. And that folds over to that third question of, how am I saying it? Am I clearly using inflammatory language intended to humiliate, to make someone appear stupid, to sound stupid? Am I doing that? Because if that is what you are doing, you're doing it wrong. You are on another fast track towards being banned, being blocked, being reported, right? So you want to watch your tone, right? Keeping in mind that when you have only 160 characters, that you don't have facial expressions, you don't have body language, you don't have tone of voice, and so many things are very easy to misrepresent. So if you've got to go back and retype something a few times before sending it, retype it a few times before sending it. And I think the last thing is kind of a fourth question to ask is, am I trying to persuade this person, or am I trying to win this argument? This goes like all three of those things combined. If you're just trying to slam dunk on somebody the way that you think like a Ben Shapiro is known for, or whoever, you're just trying to slam dunk on somebody, make them look stupid in front of other people on the internet, you will get banned, blocked a lot. It will happen. Whereas if you are just bringing information, I'm going to present my case and then leave it at that, and you know what? Nobody, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware, no one has ever changed their mind about a subject after a Twitter thread. No one has ever changed their mind after a back and forth on TikTok of 160 characters at a time. No one has ever changed their minds after seeing a lengthy YouTube comment thread, whatever. No one has ever done that. But you can place one nugget into someone's path that it might move them 1 degree closer. And then they might come across something. This is, in some ways, it's the thing that a lot of people are afraid of on the internet, is that if you encounter something enough times, it'll soften you towards that perspective, right? And so you want to just, if you can move them 1 needle punch away from where they are, towards agreement with you, maybe down the road, that's a win. And this kind of contextualizes of what do you really consider to be a satisfying outcome. Because personally, for me, keeping an open dialogue is enough, right? Of course, I've been blocked, I've been banned, all that stuff, but keeping an open dialogue, there's been numerous people that have come across my content that at first were hostile, and they've been hostile, and then after numerous conversations, they warmed up, and then they started agreeing. And look for opportunities to agree rather than disagree, right? Look for opportunities where that middle ground lays. You think like a Steven Crowder change my mind thing. Look for opportunities to say, yes, I agree with that, because that's your bridge. almost no one out there on the internet, whether it's the most volatile feminist over here versus me being a conservative, traditional house husband, whatever, with traditional values, marriage values, and such, no matter how far apart we seem to be, there's always something we can find to agree about. Something. And so weave your way through towards what that might be. Because if you can say someone that is that opposed to you agrees with you about one small thing, you can build on that. And then later, maybe you can find out that you agree about something else. And then maybe you can find out, like for instance, finding out that you and an atheist, I'm a Christian obviously, finding out that an atheist is pro-life, that they're against abortion. That's a huge bridge builder. Now we can talk about why do you think that as opposed to why I think about that. Now we can conversate about our difference in moral hierarchies and structures that we believe in that has led us to the same position through different paths and how those contrast. And then maybe we can start talking about how that which opinion of how to ground morality is superior, and you blossom out in that direction. Look for those opportunities to agree with no strings attached. Don't say, well, now you can't believe that because blah blah blah, blah. Like, just take the victory of we agree about something and maybe just leave it at that, and then later you can circumvent back around to trying to examine things later, right? So, summarizing all of this. Number one, who are you speaking to? Treating that person as literally a human being with a mind of his or her own. Not just repeating talking points for some whatever engine out there, in idealist conclave out there, but as an individual whom is not stupid, is not necessarily ignorant, that maybe has bad sources, but they probably do have some sources. All right? Number two is, what am I saying? Am I saying things that are intentionally derogatory? Am I saying things that is set up to make someone seem stupid? That is set up as a trap to try and humiliate my opponent? Am I doing those things? Because if I'm doing those things, I need to stop doing that. Number three, how am I saying it? Where's the tone? Am I intentionally using big words in order to make the other person seem unintelligent? Am I wasting time typing out words that I'm going to have to later chase down and define? Because, like, am I doing things like that, gambits like that? Am I asking unfair loaded questions? Am I, like, things of that nature? Just what is my tone coming across as? What kind of pictures am I painting of myself and of my opponent? What kind of, like, all of that, right? And then, what is my goal? Number four. What is my objective with this conversation? Am I trying to just humiliate an opponent? Am I trying to persuade them in a no-holds-barred manner? Or am I just trying to put their hand onto the guardrail so that they can walk down one extra step away from where they are towards what I believe to be true, right? What is my objective? And what is the ideal outcome is kind of the number five. What is the ideal outcome from this conversation? Because something you need to realize is sometimes the ideal outcome of a conversation does not involve persuasion. You think about, like, the holiday dinner table, Thanksgiving, Christmas, or whatever. Sometimes just not bringing up a subject is the right way to go. Sometimes choosing to stay in the safe, fairways of conversation with a person is the best mechanism for maintain, because is the goal to just maintain a relationship, because that can be the best goal. If I can build a healthy relationship focusing on points of agreement and such, then who knows how many months from now, how many years from now, maybe, all of a sudden they're going to come to you and be like, I'm convinced. I've had multiple people come to me years later after having conversations that they've changed their mind about their sexuality, that they've changed their mind about their religious beliefs, about their covenantal beliefs, about marriage, about different subjects, because I just left a little bit of, I don't know what you want to call it, a worm to kind of eat its way into their mind, and that it just kind of stayed in there and pecked them from on its own. They started doing their own research. They started finding better sources, and then after a while, after a long, long while, they came to their own conclusion that happened to be in agreement with me. And then there's certain instances where I've gone in full bore, guns blazing, and then realized halfway in I'm wrong about something, that I was mistaken, that maybe I misread something or misunderstood it, and ended up having to, if that's the case, let me do a sidebar really quick. If that's the case, you realize, oh, I was wrong, admit that you were wrong. You would be amazed at how much of a relationship builder saying, yeah, like I was off on that. How much that can do to help you build healthy social media interactions with other people, right? So remember, I mean, you're human too. Everyone's fallible. Like, let's admit it. So I know that's a lot. I know this video is kind of long, but if you put those points into practice, which it does take practice, you're not going to have all this down immediately. And even if you do everything the right way, you still might get blocked by some people. You still might get banned from certain platforms. You still might get reported and guideline violations and things. It still just might happen, because keeping in mind, it's another person over there. It's not an NPC, it's not an algorithm. It's another person. And some people are just, they're not ready to have their beliefs challenged. Some people are not willing to have their beliefs challenged. And you need to recognize that some people are just brick walls. And just, you can't do anything about that. You can't change anything about that. So, all that aside, go out there and use your 160 characters at a time, make videos, make responses and so forth, and stay humble about it.